You don't get in business to be rich. You get in business to pay the bills to put your children through school. And if you're lucky and work hard, then you may go to the top. And I was talking to a young man that owns this production company. I think he's been in business 10 years. Most businesses fail. 2/3 of businesses fail in the first year. And then another half fail in the next 4 years. So if you got to 5 years, you're probably like the top 20%.
Right.
And then if you got 10 years, it's like, my hat's off to the young man. So it wasn't to become rich. My goal was always to have 3 to 5 restaurants. And I figured with that we could live a better life. Then I was in corporate America with Exxon 13 years.
The one that I bet on myself.
We're back. I'm Ray Crockett. This is my guy, Ro Parrish, and we are hanging on Crockett's Corner. Now, Ro, this is a show that I felt was necessary and needed because every athlete has aspirations and aspirations. Both of the two. Going pro in their respective sports. But not all get to do that.
Right.
But I want to show the world, I want to show our viewers that just because you don't make it pro in your sport, it does not mean you didn't make it to the league.
Right.
And this young man, as I call him, young man is in a league of his own.
Let me go ahead and introduce him properly. Number one, he is a Big Ten champion when it comes to running track, also in multiple halls of fame. Let me just put that out there. So put some respect on his name. Since being an athlete, he's been an entrepreneur, has owned over 30 McDonald's restaurants, owned and operated. By the way, he's done so many things. He's been awarded every award that you can receive within McDonald's. Philanthropy. Oh, by the way, from giving away bikes to kids to putting together a hospital in Africa. Yes, the motherland. So, I'm not done yet. By the way, multiple colleges around the United States. He has buildings named after him. Oh, by the way, he is an excellent father and a husband. He is my dad. I'm not here without him. Mr. Roland G. Parrish is in the building. Is that the proper introduction? Did I get it all right?
I think that was a proper introduction.
Did I leave anything out?
No, probably the biggest thing was when you said a great dad. Okay.
I like it.
That was probably the biggest thing.
Of course.
That was the biggest thing. Bringing tears to my eyes.
Look, you guys are bringing tears to my eyes here on Crockett's Corner. Normally on the corner, we hang it tough.
Right.
But today,
it's a different episode.
This is a different episode. This is one because this is one that's near to my heart because I have 2 sons as well. And my sons played sports growing up. And neither one got to make it to be a professional. They both played in college. So that's why I felt this episode was necessary because most people think that the only way you can go pro, the only way you can become a multimillionaire is to be a professional, an athlete, a rapper. And that's not the case. You took a whole different route. Tell us a little bit first and foremost about your sports aspect of it, running track, then going to Purdue, and then realizing there's something else out there. I'm gonna have to do something else. Tell us a little bit about the beginning.
First of all, Mr. Crockett and Mr. Parrish, Mr. Young Parrish, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity. I feel honored to be here. And the more I've learned about Ray Crockett, a lot of respect as an athlete and as a businessman and as a business person and from an academic standpoint too. So I guess that first season I would say student athlete, and I wanted to be like people say be like Mike. I wanted to be like one of my cousins. And I did find my race, my sport in junior high school was the 800 meters. We called it the 880 back then. And I was able to win a state championship, be ranked as high as 4th in the nation, and win medals in the Big Ten and running some NCAA championships. And that's one of those races you got to train for. Mm-hmm. It's not like natural ability. And with that, I was able to earn a full ride to Purdue University. And while there, and I've got to check it, I made the dean's list something like 6 out of 8 semesters in the business school.
I thought it was 6 out of 7. I think it's 6 out of 7.
Yeah, I've got to go back and look. I got to check the stats. I got to check the fact check.
Yeah,
I got to fact check it.
Right.
You're very smart though.
Yeah.
Very astute,
very
as we call it.
I was smart, but I really had to work hard. I spent so much time in the library. And when we opened the Roland G. Parrish Library of Management and Economics in the business.
That's one of the buildings that he has. One of the buildings on the college campus. Just want to put that out there.
I had this quote. I said, I spent more time in the library than I did on the track. And sort of, you got to make a statement that people want to publish.
Right.
But probably 5 nights a week, I was in the library studying. and the business degree, but undergrad was quant methods, analytics now, and then in grad school was finance. So I had to study to make the grades.
So hold on for a second, because this is something I've never asked my dad that I want to ask him, and I'm going to do it since we have all these lovely people here in this audience. You're an avid reader. I've counted at least 500 or so books just in your office alone.
Wow,
that's a lot.
that's an avid reader.
It is. I've always wanted to know, where did the thirst for knowledge and wanting to learn more by reading, where did that come from?
Probably from a, I guess, heredity standpoint. You may not know it, but my grandfather, your great grandfather, was a sharecropper, and he crossed the mighty Mississippi from Arkansas into Memphis, and basically just was a common laborer. But he eventually read books and became a carpenter, and then started his own business right about 100 years ago, and actually had his own team. And there's some subdivisions in northern Memphis that he and his crew actually built. And that crew was supplied by his sons. He had 8 boys and 3 girls. And so the older boys, which included my father, your grandfather, they learned to be carpenters when they were young. And that's how they supported the family. So I think from his reading, it probably came to my father, your grandfather, and it continued. And I see that you like to read also.
So when you're talking about reading, I'm big on books as well. And a book that I used to read was The Millionaire Next Door. And then another book I read, and I told him about this, was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Are you familiar with those books?
Yes, I am.
Now, in my mindset, the reason why I felt that this was going to be a very, very important episode is because of this. When I first bought my, so to speak, big house, mansion, or whatever they want to call it, I went down both streets, and I was the only athlete on that street. So I always wondered, who was the millionaires next door? So in your mindset, did you have aspirations, one, to become an Olympian? Because the only time and the only way you make money running track is either on the circuit or being an Olympian. And when you found out that that may not happen, what in your mindset made you want to be the millionaire next door? Or what did you say, okay, I can use my education to become the millionaire next door?
Okay, so I'll probably make this statement on athletics and we'll probably leave it. So in 1975, I had run a 148.3, and the Olympic U.S. qualifying time for the Olympic trials was 147.9, 0.4 of a second. And so I was headed to grad school, and I went to visit the coach several times, and I was 2-time MVP team captain. And it's like, Coach Rankin, while I'm in grad school, can I be one of those unpaid graduate assistant coaches, use the locker room, go to some of the meets on the bus, pay my own fee, and get this 0.4 to go to the U.S. Olympic trials? And there was something that came out that year, Title IX, and he was going to have to share the locker room. For the first time, there was no women's track team or basketball when I was in school, and they were just going to start those, and they're going to have to give a locker room space. So he never answered me. So at that point, I just said, okay, I just focus on the academics. Now, I don't know if I would have made the Olympic team, but just to go to the Olympic trials, to me, from really a non-athletic guy, just worked hard, would have been great. There's a couple books I like to mention here when you talk about Rich Dad, Poor Dad and The Millionaire Next Door. There's a book by a gentleman named Reginald Lewis called Why Should White Guys Have the Fun? I think this is a trilogy. If you remember when you were small, your parents had Ebony Jet, or maybe your grandparents, Ebony or Jet. So that was John H. Johnson. And he has a book called Succeeding Against the Odds. And then there's Black Enterprise. That family, their matriarch had a book called, patriarch, had a book called How to Succeed in Business Without Being White. And so those 3 books, to me, became my trilogy of becoming a successful business person. And one of the things that is said and this is by Earl Graves, who is the Black Enterprise founder, you don't get in business to be rich. You get in business to pay the bills to put your children through school. And if you're lucky and work hard, then you may go to the top. And I was talking to a young man that owns this production company. I think he's been in business 10 years. Most businesses fail. 2/3 of businesses fail in the first year, and then another half fail in the next 4 years. So if you get to 5 years, you're probably like the top 20%.
Right.
And then if you got 10 years, it's like, my hat's off to the young man. So it wasn't to become rich. My goal was always to have 3 to 5 restaurants. And I figured with that we could live a better life. Then I was in corporate America with Exxon 13 years. So, but anyway, those are my books I like to throw out there.
Well, we can tell you this. The white guys did not have all the fun and are not having all the fun. He's having a lot of fun, and he's going to tell you a little bit about how he became rich. He may not have gotten into it to become rich, but we're going to toast to him becoming rich, and he's going to tell us that story when we get back. Crockett's Corner.
Crockett's Corner is the show. Ro Parrish, of course, running the two-man game with my boy right here, Ray Crockett. But listen, I got a Hall of Famer, I got a businessman, philanthropist. My dad is in the building, Roland Parrish, and we appreciate you once again. And this is something I've never asked you before. And just in case y'all don't know, he's a very successful businessman. He's done wonders for me and the family. McDonald's, the Golden Arches. What was so appealing about the Golden Arches to you that made you want to go in that direction?
Okay. Mr. Crockett, I think you're going to appreciate this story. I knew that I was going to have to leave corporate America to realize my dream. And I ended up working 13 years for Exxon Corporation. But around year 10, I actually started studying for CPA. Now, I was not an accountant, but the Purdue Business School has a strong accounting program that, I mean, when you graduate, you're just good. And I knew guys who were not accountants who passed the CPA. So I actually started prepping to take the CPA test because I know I was going to leave corporate America. And there was a good friend of mine named Oliver Underwood from Indiana. Brother has an MBA from MIT, and he had been to the Army, so he was like my mentor. I walked into his office one day, and he had an 8-page application from McDonald's. And so even though I was pursuing the CPA, knowing I was going to leave corporate America, I asked him for it. I called the Houston office, called the Chicago office, got 2 applications, wrote one out in pencil, bought a typewriter, sent one in, and I got rejected. And
So wait, he just had an application just laying on his desk.
Now he was
a McDonald's application.
He was sitting back reading it, and his brother had Burger Kings.
Oh, okay.
So I know he knew what he was talking about. And so again, I called the Houston office and the Chicago headquarters, got an application sent, filled them out, and I was rejected. Then that athletic part came in.
The competitiveness.
Right.
They rejected me.
So what was the rejection for? I mean, normally I've done some franchises.
Yeah.
What
Okay.
exactly was the rejection?
The lady, her name is Ruth Anderson. I still have the letter framed. After I got rejected, I called every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday when I got to my office at 9:30 for about 3 months. Every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9:30, I would call, and she was never in. So one day, the lady said about 3 months later, she says, "Oh, she's in." And so now I'm thinking, what do I say? So she gets on the phone, and I'm like, "Miss Anderson, I'm the gentleman you rejected." Gave her the date of the letter. And she says, "Well," and I was like, "Well, I have these degrees from Purdue University." She says, "Well, degrees really don't work in McDonald's very well." So that's strike one. So then I say, "Well,"
Wait, degree. So you got wait. So you got a strike for actually having an education.
Right. Yeah, I never thought about that. Yeah, I got a strike for having 2 degrees.
For having 2 degrees. So
right, right,
okay.
in the MBA.
I just had to make sure they heard that. Okay.
Yeah. So then I had worked in Mississippi before, and I really didn't have a Southern accent. So I just asked if there was a minority program. She says, "No, we don't have any minority programs." So strike 2. Now, when I worked for Exxon in the state of Mississippi, where Ro was born, I ran service stations, and I became a hell of a service station person for Exxon, and ran basically all the company-operated service stations in the state of Mississippi. Company operated. And so for some reason, I started talking about time clocks, uniforms, cleaning restrooms, landscape, customer complaints. We had 6 steps around the car, and I didn't realize McDonald's had 6 steps at front counter.
So now you're starting to fit the bill.
Yeah, she just didn't cut me off.
Right.
She was listening, and I just kept talking. And I wrapped it up by saying, "My mom and dad, your grandparents," I said, "when we cut the grass, we even had to sweep not only all the grass on the sidewalk, we had to go into the street and sweep all the grass." This was before the blowers. And so she told me I wasn't in, and it would take me 9 months to get in the program, but she began to open doors. But it resonated, And I always tell people, I have friends who are working who graduated from school with me. They had jobs in Jamaica, Spain, Italy, and I was in Jackson, Mississippi, which was not impressive. But what I learned running the service stations was really what got me in the program.
The service element.
Right. Then I had to work 2 years free, 25 hours a week, not minimum wage, 2 years free. And
While you're still at Exxon.
right, so 50 hours a week at Exxon, 10 hours a week commuting, and 25 hours a week in a restaurant. In fact, my son always told me, he was approaching 10 years old, that Saturdays was our day and we would have a great time. Then all of a sudden when I started training to get 25 hours a week, a lot of Saturdays I worked 10 to 12 hours.
Sacrifices.
Right. And so he always said life changed and he didn't know what happened. But except for maybe being a customer at McDonald's, I always said my children they're allergic to McDonald's.
Let's hold on for a second.
I think Rose,
I mean, it's past the statutes of limitations, but you know, we were working in the stores at a young age. So I like to say we got a little burned out by the time we got to a certain point, but we won't focus on that. What I do want to focus on is actually your first restaurant that you opened in Pleasant Grove, the month of June, 1989. What was the significance of opening it on that specific date, which fell on Juneteenth?
And you know what? Sometimes I think in life, things happen. Just like I just happened to walk in Oliver Underwood's office.
Nothing just happens.
And I mean, maybe the man upstairs made it happen. Right.
There you go.
Okay,
Exactly.
Hey. So, hey, can I tell you a funny story about Oliver? You may cut it, Mr. Director. So I got you about, okay. So as I said, Oliver was my mentor. Smart guy, African-American from my state, Indiana, and he was my mentor. So anyway, but Oliver had a family, but he enjoyed life. I'll just leave it at that.
Right.
And so my wife, your mom, doesn't always like Oliver. But anyway, Oliver called me a few years ago. He's an avid Oakland Raiders fan. It's a football story.
Yeah, we might edit this.
Yeah. But
just because we might edit this.
Yeah.
No, I'm just
So
I might let him walk. He's a Raider fan. Okay.
Yeah.
It's all right.
So Oliver calls me because the Raiders, Thanksgiving Day, the Cowboys play, and that's a big game. So the Raiders were coming to town to play the Cowboys. And so Oliver, I hadn't heard from Oliver in maybe 10 years. Oliver calls me and he's like, Roland, do you have some tickets for the game? I'm a big Raiders fan.
Right.
And now here's a guy who, because of his introduction, I'm
Almost in debt in a sense.
Yeah. And after I told him, I said, yes, I have tickets. Then it's like, Oliver, I'm like, Oliver, do you know how I got in McDonald's? And his answer was, nope.
He had no clue.
He had no clue.
He didn't realize. I said, Oliver, you're the one who gave me the application. I said, Oliver, I came in your office. You gave me the application. He had no clue. I go home and I tell the wife, I said, guess who I heard from today? Oliver Underwood. He asked me for tickets to the Thanksgiving game. And we don't go to the Thanksgiving game. We have family dinner. And her comment was, I know you told him no.
Does she know that you guys are indebted to Oliver at this time?
I guess not. Remember I said Oliver had a family but enjoyed life?
Right.
So, but I remember I was looking, his grandson was going to drive him up. And he called me Thanksgiving, because I was like, Oliver, come early. Come sit at the dinner table with us. Have Thanksgiving dinner. You can stay at the house. I'll personally drive you to the game.
Oliver's not having that.
Yeah.
Oliver doesn't need that.
Yeah. But no. And so in the end, he canceled.
So you went through all that. You got tickets. You told your wife. And
we already had tickets. You already had tickets.
Right. Yeah. So he canceled on the trip.
Yeah. And even a few years ago, the Raiders came, and I actually called him and invited him. But I was just like, Oliver, I'll fly you up first class from Houston and everything. So anyway, Oliver has never come to a Raiders game.
Well, thank you, Oliver, because we definitely appreciate you, because it led to the first McDonald's in Pleasant Grove.
Right. So after 2 years of training, and actually then it took another 6 months for the restaurant to open, we opened on June 19th, 1989. And I believe you were at Duncanville at that time, right?
No, actually, that was my first year in the league. I got drafted in 1989. So,
In '89? Okay.
and I'm from Pleasant Grove originally, so I like this
right.
story.
Okay,
yeah.
that's right, because
Yeah.
you went to Skyline.
I went to Skyline, yes.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and now can I ask, we were on the wrong side of the tracks. We were down by Woodland City and Hunts.
Oh, I grew up on the wrong side.
So you grew up over there?
Yeah,
Really?
definitely, in all those
Near-
apartments.
wait.
Yes.
Near Woodland City?
Yep. I grew up in Woodland City apartments.
Man,
Yes.
remember Ettrick James, Francis James, all those guys, man? Ettrick James. Wait, now did you play for coach for the Trojans?
I didn't play football. I didn't start playing football until my sophomore year.
Oh,
so,
really?
So yeah, early on I didn't play, but I do remember that McDonald's. So you
Being
opened
built.
that first McDonald's.
Right, we opened that June 19th. And at that time, I didn't know the significance of Juneteenth. We had heard of Juneteenth when we moved to Texas. But again, it was more of a Texas holiday then. And I heard of it because we lived in Houston for years. But later I added it to my logo. If you look at my logo at the bottom, it says open Juneteenth, 1989. And so it became significant.
Right.
And now I'm really proud of that. And as we mentioned, sometimes things they weren't planned, but the Oliver Underwood, the working in service stations when people were off in Italy and other places, Juneteenth.
It all just came
Yeah,
together.
it just all came together.
So we have to toast to that. We have to toast to the
Yeah.
look, the first McDonald's, and you had after that. I've heard you've owned and operated over 30 McDonald's. We have to get into that because now, after becoming an entrepreneur and a successful businessman, now you're becoming a multi-millionaire. We have to talk about that as well. And we have to talk if that was your real dream of your aspiration of opening stores. We'll be back on Crockett's Corner. This is my guy, Mr. Roland Parrish, and his son, Mr. Ro Parrish. We'll see you guys in a minute. Welcome back to Crockett's Corner. I'm Ray Crockett. This is my guy, Ro Parrish, and we're sitting here with the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Roland Parrish. Hey, started off running track at Purdue, went from running track at Purdue to becoming a successful businessman, owning his first and operating his first McDonald's, but ended up owning multiple McDonald's. Talk to us about how you went from your first to owning 30 and operating 30 McDonald's.
All right. I refer to those books, and Ray, and I'm going to mention the title again. So there was Reginald Lewis's book, which is Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? John H. Johnson, Ebony and Jet, who was How to Succeed Against the Odds, who had Ebony, Jet, and also he had a cosmetics line, and the Ebony Fashion Fair was big, man, that was big. And at one time, Mr. Johnson was the richest Black man in America, and he was replaced by Reginald Lewis. And so I had 4 restaurants. I had 2 in Pleasant Grove and 2 in the airport. Very different environments. I'm working at Grove, the hood, and then I go out to DFW Airport, high security, don't have to worry about, don't have to pack or anything. And I remember I said, man, I pretty much got it made. Right. They were going to be paid off. And I figured my notes at that time was $11,000 a month. And this was about 1996, 97. And I was like, I said, man, I could put that in my pocket, man. $11,000 a month on top of what I was making. Right. That was good. So a guy I grew up with at Purdue, we went to Purdue together. He called me up and he started telling me about some other guy who had something like, 30 Taco Bells. Now this guy had partners and all that kind of stuff. I don't have any partners. But
you're getting competitive though. You're listening and the competitive juices start flowing.
Yeah, and he just kind of slammed me. And so I remember I was in my mobile phone. This was when you didn't have a cell phone. You had a mobile phone, in your car. Right. And I hung up the phone and I just said, I'll show him.
You know what, hey, like the Michael Jordan meme, I took that personally.
I did. I took it personally.
Yeah.
And so I also had read in Black Enterprise, which Earl Graves' book, and there was the BE 100. And I saw that I was, maybe
BE, Black Enterprise
100.
100.
The 100
right.
top
100 Black
businesses.
Yes.
And so also during that time I saw where I wasn't in the top 100, but I was maybe, 10 million in sales, close.
Right.
So those competitive juices of a boyhood friend embarrassing me because some guy had a partnership that owned 30 Taco Bells, and their volume was half or two-thirds of McDonald's.
Right.
And then the fact of, hey, man, I think I can make the BE 100. And I saw two guys in there, Herb Washington and Junior Bridgman.
Junior Bridges was a basketball player from
Right.
Detroit Pistons.
Right. And he had run track when I was in high school.
And
We had
see-
run
and
the
see,
same
here's
meets.
I like the interesting part of this
Yeah.
that I really love. Talk about the sports side of it.
Right,
and-
that's
and
what I was
being-
gonna ask.
And being competitive, how
Competitive,
in business,
right.
how it transfers, because that's what I keep hearing. Junior Bridgman, sports, yourself, sports. How does that transfer into business?
Yeah, and I thought it's trivia in there. Ulysses Junior Bridgman is his name. And I sort of know him. I ran against his brother Sam. His sister April married my cousin. But I knew his dad, Ulysses Bridgman Sr. He and his dad talked all the time. His dad would come watch me run track. So I knew the Bridgmans very well. So anyway, I saw Bridgman was in there. Herb Washington was in there. He had run at Michigan State when I ran at Purdue, so I knew of him. And it just became, hey man, I want to get this BE 100 and I'm gonna grow restaurants. So we started doing the things we needed to do to grow restaurants. And so we started growing restaurants. And the other thing is, I didn't mention it to my family anytime I got another restaurants. I just didn't talk about it for X number of years. So this same gentleman, his name is Randall Lewis, that had dished me on the Taco Bells.
Right.
Call him out by name.
Yeah.
Hope
Love-
you're watching too.
Yeah. Hey, Randall, love you, man. Love you, man. So I would say about 10 years later, I was at Purdue, and there was a guy, Maymon Powers was a trustee, and Maymon was African American, and his company was in the BE 100. And so we went to the area where the trustees were, and we were just talking with Maymon. Randall was there and I was there, and they were talking, and I normally do, I just sit. And so finally they turned to me and they said, Roland, how's McDonald's? I said, it's okay. Now I remember the last time they heard from me, I had four.
Right.
And it said,
I can't wait to hear this.
they said, how many restaurants do you have now? And I just calmly said, 27.
Gotcha.
Okay. You took that person for real.
Now, I never brought up the Taco Bells or anything during that whole 10-year period.
Right.
And I remember they stopped and looked again and said, did we hear you correctly? 27. I said, yeah, 27.
Yeah.
And so then we talked about how I went from 4 to 27. But my family and we didn't talk.
We did not. I mean, and I'll just insert right now because I looked up one day and my mom said something like, oh yeah, you know your dad has 32. The same reaction the guys had at the table, I had that same reaction as his son. So that's a true statement. He didn't really come home and brag about, but you know what? The lights was on, we had food every night. I'll tell you that much, you know?
I'm sure. so where did, I guess for me, as I'm listening and looking at you, you seem very humble, very calm. Where does that competitiveness come from?
Well, I had talked to you earlier and you were a sprinter.
Right.
And Roe was a sprinter. And I always say sprinters, one, they have natural ability. They don't have to really, they train, but they don't have to train really hard. And Roe ran some 4s. I know you ran some 300s, so you guys had to train some. But remember, I was an 800 guy.
Right.
And I keep hitting my mic, hope that's bad. And I ran cross country. So I had to really work. I really had to work. I honed myself to become an athlete. I did push-ups. My father went by weights. I did push-ups every night in high school. And so I had to hone myself to become an athlete. And we didn't really talk trash. You know, the sprinters talk trash when they get to the line.
Right.
I mean, 800, you just don't look around and talk trash. So I didn't talk trash. Now here's something I learned from Junior Bridgman, and it was from his family. And again, I mentioned his name. I've only been in his presence, except for high school track, and he did run through his junior year. But I remember I've taken Sports Illustrated since junior high school.
Right.
And so when he was at Louisville, I remember I'm in college now, I'm taking Sports Illustrated. He was in Sports Illustrated. And I just remember I said some of my family has married into the Bridgman family, they married into the Parrish family. And I remember his sister said, Junior was in Sports Illustrated and he didn't even tell us. And I thought about it. I said, man, isn't it cool if you let other people brag on you?
Then you bragging on yourself.
And
so it's that mentality of running an 800
yeah,
that teaches you to build
yeah,
quietly
right,
and then show it, just produce it later.
right. And Junior Bridgman, and then I have this top 5 list of where people describe me in 2 words or less. And one of my cousins, Jeff Morrow, very successful in the music industry, he called me in high school quietly confident. And so that's one of my top 5.
I like
you,
it.
You're in the
I
top
like it.
5, Jay's in the top 5.
Yeah.
And I have a couple people in the top 5. He called me quietly confident. So those 3 things: Junior Bridgman, being a distance runner, middle distance, and my cousin Jeff, quietly confident.
And real quick before we go to break, what are some of the sports lessons that you learned that you've taken into the business world that you've had success with?
One, I'm gonna tell you one thing. I don't know if this is one of them is, and it's not sports, but trust times respect equal influence. So I know if my employees trust me, and if they respect me, then I can influence them to do things. And I really think, as I was a team captain in high school, a team captain in college, and sometimes I wasn't the rah-rah guy, and I think people would see, they would trust me and respect me, and then I can influence them to, hey, man, you got to perform. You got to perform.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So you led by actions,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
by words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and now in the restaurants, I was the rah-rah guy. I'm gonna tell you, I liken running the restaurants sometimes to being a quarterback or the defensive signal caller, probably the defensive signal caller. Because in McDonald's, you got the front counter, you got the kitchen, you got drive-through, and you got people working in the lobby. And I remember there were times, and you know Pleasant Grove, I had that restaurant, then I got the one up on Buckner. Do you remember the one up on Buckner?
Yeah, I remember that location for sure.
Cleaned that baby up and turned it from the armpit into a nice restaurant. But I remember sometimes on a Saturday, we'd be working really hard at one restaurant, and the manager from the other restaurant would call and say, hey, Roland, I need you to come down here. We just had 2 buses pull up. And I grab a couple good people, put somebody in charge, and we roll down to the restaurant, and they would put me in charge of running the floor. So it's like, man, you're the defensive signal caller, because I'm on defense. You know, we got to deliver food. We got fries, we got food, we got drive-through, we got front counter, we got the lobby. And so I'm sitting there looking, you know, I'm
getting excited right now because of the parallels.
Yeah. So, you know, we got
There's so many different, we got to finish this story because you're over there acting like a quarterback right now.
Yeah.
There's so many different parallels in business and sports, and we're going to bring it all together when we come back, but I'm excited. We'll be right back here on Crockett's Corner. And we're back hanging on Crockett's Corner with my man, Ro Parrish, and the elder, Roland Parrish. And the one thing I like about this conversation and about everything that's happening today is the parallel between sports and business. And you got into it a little bit about how you never lost that sports sense, and you actually ran your business just as you did playing sports, whether that was football, running track. Tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll get into philanthropy. But I was a little excited because you had me going. You over there like a linebacker or a safety calling plays. How is that parallel to you?
Yeah, I got to throw this one in. And so I even learned from the pros. I would have a lot of trouble with my guys coming to work on time. And I mean, how do you penalize them? And so, especially when I became a manager. So I was reading something happened in the NBA or the NFL, and they would fine people. So instead of cutting their hours or whatever, I just fine them. If you're late,
wait. You were fining people at McDonald's?
Wait, hold on.
You got a fine for not coming.
I never knew that. I never knew that.
Guess what? It worked. It worked. It's like, I'm not going to holler at you.
That is the first time. I
you.
worked at a number of stores, Whataburger and all those other companies. Yeah. I've never been fined. Yeah. I would have been pissed if I got fined for not coming to work. And
you had to be a manager though. Some level manager.
Oh, so you had to be a manager to get fined. A normal employee wouldn't get fined.
Yeah. Now I tell you, this was a tip I learned. So I used to pay on Fridays. And our biggest days are Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday breakfast. Those are the 3 biggest days. Those 2.5 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday breakfast, is really, that's 2.5 days. That's really half of your business. And I would pay on Friday, and my key people wouldn't show up on Saturday. So you know what I started doing? Paying on Monday. Paying on Monday.
That sounds like the NFL.
Yeah. Pay on Monday. Okay. But again, and we had we have, I don't know, they call it secret, but one time when I was training in Houston, remember I trained 2 years, I became an excellent cook. I could cook a Big Mac in 30 seconds. I had to break some rules, but I could cook a Big Mac in 30 seconds. And so I was in the kitchen, and I was so good that sometimes it would be 2 guys in the kitchen. I'd be on the quarter pounder side, which you cooking quarter pounders and McDLTs. And then on the other side, they'd be cooking a Big Macs and cheeseburgers and double cheeseburgers. And then once we get everybody out the store, like a bus come up, and you want to give a high five, but you can't touch hands.
Right.
So I started tapping elbows. And so when I came to Pleasant Grove, that was how I said hello, goodbye, good job.
So basically, you had your own handshake.
It became the universal greeting.
It became
your own handshake,
right.
your own greeting.
Yeah,
Right.
and so if I came in, like I mentioned, if there was, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, that was the All-Star game. So people think on a holiday, you do a lot of business in McDonald's. You don't. You do the night before. So Christmas Eve, you do a lot of business. New Year's Eve, you do a lot of business. Thanksgiving Eve. And really but anyway, those are days I would have my all-star team. And so I would have my best kitchen people, my best front counter, my best drive-thru.
Look at the parallels.
The parallels are there between sports and business.
You got an all-star team. You're a quarterback. Look, you're cheating.
Hey,
You're actually having deflated balls, but it's deflated burgers.
And you know what? And then, but if you got picked to work,
You work real good in this. Look in this environment. This
oh yeah.
you be a
So
coach.
if you got picked to work Thanksgiving Eve that night, and we would run late because we're supposed to close at 11. We closed at 12:30, 1 o'clock because it'd be wrapped around the building. It was like it was an honor. And then when we cleaned up, I would take them down to Henderson's Chicken in South Dallas,
right.
and I would buy for everybody.
Another black owned
company.
I just want to make sure you know another
Right.
black-owned franchise.
Yeah. And we would get those greasy bags of chicken. But I remember the guys were saying, remember Tony Boyd, rolling the bone, the meat just falls off the bone. and so, but anyway, that's what we would do. But that was my All-Star team that Wednesday night. That was the biggest night. That was the biggest night.
A lot of revenue made, and you rewarded your employees by giving back, but also you've been giving back, whether it be close to 2 decades of providing bikes for the youth.
Yeah.
And something like that locally to even globally to Africa, where you've constructed a hospital.
Right.
And there's something I have to mention in the giving back role. I'm glad you came to that conclusion now because you're very successful. Mm-hmm. Over 30 McDonald's owned and operated, sports background, all that stuff come to fruition. Luke 12:48.
Right.
Something that's near to my heart and dear to my heart. Talk about that and where did that all come about? And let me let you know what it is. To whom much is given, much is required. Some people say expected. Expectation is something that you don't have to do. A requirement is something you must do. It's like a contract. So talk about that. Where did that come about?
And you know what? I can't say specifically that did hit me. And I felt that along with Malachi 3 and 10. And you probably should read that. It's right. Malachi 3 and from the 10th to about the 14th verse. And there used to be a song we would sing in church. And Roro may not remember it. You might remember it. You can't beat God giving. No matter how hard you try, the more you give, the more he gives to you. I'm gonna stop right there. Those 4 lines. And so when you put to whom much is given, much is required, and that's in the New Testament. So when you go to the Old Testament, Malachi 3, 10 to 14, there's a line in there, and okay, well, a man robbed God, and it says, bring goods into the storehouse so that I might have meat in my storehouse to feed the widows and the orphans. But there's 2 words in there that I never really noticed a few years ago, and it says, prove me, test me. In other words, God said, hey, if you do this,
reciprocity,
I will throw out blessings,
yes,
a window of blessings, and you won't have room to receive them. And so all of that kind of mixed together to Luke 12:48 and Malachi. And I could tell you how I learned how to tithe. When I first opened and I quit Exxon, Roro was a little boy, and I didn't take any money out of my business for like 6 months. I was working really, really hard, and I didn't take any money out. And I had gotten up to giving 7% in church in Houston. Every time I got a raise, I up it. But I told God, I'm working really hard. We got money coming in, but I wasn't taking any money out of the business. We opened in June, and I just said, hey, if I ever can get $1 again, I could give 10%, because I've been getting nothing for 6 months.
So basically you made a deal with God.
Yes, like, man, I'm working hard. I haven't
Right.
taken anything for 6 months. And I just said, if I ever start paying myself again, it's going to be easy to give 10% because 10% of something was better than nothing.
Exactly.
And so with that, I started really working at tithing and with the verses and things like that, it just all came to be.
Welcome back to Crockett's Corner. I'm Ray Crockett. This is my guy, Ro Parrish, and we're sitting here with the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Roland Parrish.
One thing I've always appreciated about you, something that I learned from you and have had some success in it, is betting on yourself and having that confidence to really have the machismo, the swagger to say, you know what, I can do this, whether it be being motivated from being told no, or, you know, a childhood friend saying, you only got 4 McDonald's. So where did
show you?
Yeah, exactly. And just tell me, like, where did that originate from?
Oh, and son, as a dad, I'm not sure I would call it bet on myself.
Uh-huh.
You got to make sure the circumstances are right.
Okay.
But I just felt like in that instance that if they could give me a restaurant, I remember even when I interviewed after remember I had 9 months to get in the program, then 2 years to complete the program. I told the general manager, Larry Zimmerman, after getting a pass from Ruth Anderson, I said, hey, if you want me to take a toothbrush and sweep and mop the floor in a McDonald's, I'll do it. I just felt from what I knew about running service stations and what I learned with Exxon, if I could get a restaurant, and remember, Pleasant Grove wasn't a place that people really wanted to go.
Right. Exactly.
And my second restaurant, the Buckner restaurant, was probably looked at being one of the worst McDonald's in the U.S.
Prior to you coming on board and
not many people joked about that restaurant. They joked about it. Yeah. And I remember when I took it, I didn't eat out of it for about a month. We had to really do some cleaning up. But those 2 restaurants in Pleasant Grove, now some of the highest volume restaurants in the state of Texas.
Wow.
And I'm proud of that.
Amen.
And I love Pleasant Grove. So
PG.
I just say you got to be cautious when you bet on yourself. In the NFL or the NBA, you got 27 or 30 teams that you can go to. Mm-hmm. But in some things, because I had counseled my son on something, I said, no, son, this is not the right time to bet on yourself. So with the McDonald's, I just felt if I can have a business and I could work my tail off and make this successful. And I did. But you guys recognize I had to work hard.
And with that being said, this is why I felt that this episode was very much so necessary and needed. Not only did you learn that there are parallels in business and sports, but there's also parallels in the Bible. And that is first and foremost, it's about reciprocity. You start and you become successful in life by giving, not by getting. The more you give, the more you will get. And as this young man has proven to me, giving and getting, that all starts at home. Reciprocity starts at home. And I'm going to say I'm happy and thankful to meet you, sir, and to meet you, sir.
Hey, hold on for a second. Before we close the show, can I just go a quick rapid fire?
What? You know what? Yes, we have to put him on the hot seat.
Quick rapid fire.
I'm going to drink to that, though. I'm going to drink because I know this is about to be hot. You go ahead.
Okay.
Put him on rapid
all right.
fire.
So piano, saxophone. Choose one.
Saxophone.
Saxophone. Wow. Just in case you don't know, my dad has been playing in the church since he was a very young man. Shouts out to the late, great Reverend John H. Parrish. He played in the church and he's been a musician for a very long time. Plays both the piano and the saxophone. Quick background. Music question. Temptations or Sam Cooke?
Sam Cooke.
Wow. A change gonna come. Didn't see that one coming.
Okay.
Dad is an avid music fan. Was low down row on campus back in the day. He loves the Temptations, but I just learned that he loves Sam Cooke a little bit more.
And we'll talk about that later, though. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Bonus. Marvin Gaye or Sam Cooke?
It'd be Sam.
Sam's the winner.
But those are close. Those are very close.
Very
All those
close?
are close. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, my rapid fire. Oh. Big Mac.
Quarter pounder with cheese.
Quarter pounder. Big Mac.
Quarter pounder.
Quarter pounder.
Quarter pounder.
I'm a Big Mac guy myself.
Oh, yeah?
I'm definitely a Big Mac guy.
Believe it or not, I've been in business 33 years as a franchisee. I've never eaten a Big Mac.
Really?
Wow.
While I've been a franchisee.
Wow.
I've eaten, I mean, mine is more like a double ham, or I get a quarter pounder with no onion, no cheese. But I've never eaten a Big Mac. I've cooked a lot of Big Macs. I've cooked a lot of them. But, yeah.
I got one more, and you'll appreciate this one. Bentley or Corvette?
Probably Corvette. But son, next time we get together, we have something to talk about. I want to remember those rapid fires.
Okay.
Because there's background to them.
Of course,
all of them
background.
are they're very close. All of them are very close.
But see, this is why I'm very familiar with the subject. So I wanted to ask those specific questions.
Yeah.
But bro, I'm gonna let you close this out. I'm gonna let you close this out because I'm thinking to myself in the back of my mind, I think he's a lover and not a fighter.
Right.
Sam,
wait, hold on, wait. Hey, he ain't a killer, but don't push him.
Exactly.
Wait, that's officially a wrap for Crockett's Corner. I'm gonna go ahead and hold my glass up to two men who I love and respect dearly. Of course, Ray Crockett.
Oh my God, this was a great one.
Business partner. We do a lot of things together. My dad, if he's not here, I'm not here. So salute to you two gentlemen. Another great episode of Crockett's Corner. We all got kids, we all love them, we all got family. Much love to you, respect, salute.
We'll see you next week, hanging out here on the corner, Crockett's Corner.
Not to be a fighter because my father was a fighter. He was a boxer. He boxed up like when he was 7 years old, all the way through the Navy. And my father was more like fight first, ask questions second. Right. I'm gonna say there was 8 boys. Like when they would go out to the club and stuff, those
Yeah. And I can sense that when I see the show, but let's let it go. And that's why I try to bring in some excerpts so we can get Eric Evans, all of us was really tight.
You were at that time in the car?
Yes, I was 2 years above Darren Lewis, 1 year above Jesse Armstead. So me and Jesse were like best friends.
And I guess the other thing is this is more so post-production. Like if we're having a conversation and there's a lull or it's like after he's finished answering, hey, let's go in this direction now.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
It won't be like it's not IFB or anything.
Exactly, yeah.
It's not live.
Tyler's coming.
Mr. Parrish, put some respect on that man's name. Right. Makes sense.